Hello and welcome to another A Link to the Past Randomizer Race League here on SpeedGaming channel. Today we have a race between the Last Locationers and the Magic Lamp Oil. Representing the Last Locationer is the Illus. Representing the Magic Lamp Oil is prier57. I am Worldwide Wimpy, and I am joined by the man who has an encyclopedic knowledge of this game, Mr. Coy. How are you doing today, sir?
I don't know how I got a reputation like that. It's totally not true.
So,
I know like three things. I just know those three things really well. That's all.
So in week 2, we are doing an Ambrosia seed. Now, if you're unfamiliar with that, it is your standard open to the game. Sword Assured, as you see our sprites today at the beginning of the menu, have that wonderful fighter sword up in the air. We get a hint as to where the boots are at from our uncle to start the game. And the biggest thing I think about Ambrosia is that every single boss in every single dungeon has at least one item. They do not have any dungeon items, so no map, no compass, no small key. So it'll be interesting to see how these runners decide to route everything in.
Uncle's starting us off with a fantastic hint. The boots are in the Dark World. It's actually not that helpful.
Speaking of Dark World, we get a Moon Pearl in our house. That's very convenient.
Yeah, definitely a nice find there. Getting a map check there from Illus. Pendant at Tower of Hera. So the Dark World is like 100 different locations, so it's really not a helpful hint. Typically with Ambrosia, you're looking for hints that say it's in a specific dungeon, because then you know exactly where to go to look for it. But with the Dark World, it can pretty much be anywhere. Maybe impactful later in the seed when we've narrowed down like 4 or 5 Dark World locations left.
And I was going to say we would see maybe what the prize pack inside the guards were, but our uncle had some explosions for us, so we're not going to be passing up that backside escape today on this standard routing.
Yeah, the prize pack does have a bomb in it. We got a small magic on the first drop, so I think the 5th drop will be a single bomb. You know, which could be important because you'd like to leave the escape with 3 bombs instead of 2. But I don't think either runner's going to go too far out of their way to get it. Maybe do like a spin on a bunch of ropes.
As we see our runners making their way back into the dungeon of Hyrule Castle. Of course, if you've never played the vanilla game, this is how the game starts off. You have to go rescue Princess Zelda, who's being held captive in the basement of the castle, and bring her over to her sanctuary. As we find another red rupee inside the vanilla map chest. Now, Coy, you're a little bit more familiar with our runners. How would you grade this race on a competitive level?
Well, I'm really familiar with Illus. I watch him play all the time and race against him in dailies every now and then. He's better than me. That's typically how I rate people. Better than me, can sometimes beat me, and never beats me. And Illus always beats me. Prior, I'm not as familiar with, but I talked to Fear before this, and he said that Prior is really good, although he just doesn't play as often.
So we see our runners hitting almost the bottom floor of the basement here. They'll have a heavy armor knight over in the corner to get the big key to rescue Zelda and pick up a check in there. Now, normally you would find the lamp somewhere inside of Hyrule Castle, but in Randomizer, lamp could be anywhere. So luckily enough, the programmers of the Randomizer will give us a light cone to see through the dark rooms in the back, but I would assume both of these runners would be good enough to do that without that light cone.
Illus tried his best to avoid having to swipe that green guard twice, and ended up losing 2 hearts and swiping him twice anyway.
Sometimes that green guard could be a jerk, just follows you around and doesn't let you go.
He'd have to get like super duper bad RNG in the back of escape for him to die or something, so I'm not too worried about him. But that is really frustrating that trying to avoid taking damage ends up taking damage.
I do believe there's a heart in the pot that's just south and to the left of the door that leads you to that first rope room.
Yeah, there's a heart on the way. He won't pick it up though. I think like somebody like Illus's caliber, you're not going to pick up that heart unless you're down to maybe half a heart or so. Well, he's down to a heart and a half now.
I was saying, it looks as though he's trying his best.
The guard RNG is just not working with Illus today.
It happens sometimes, and you just kind of sigh and deal with it.
Like, I think the ropes do half a heart of damage, but then, like, rats and bats only do a quarter heart, so it's really not dangerous here in the back of the escape.
And there's that light cone I was speaking of. Now, if you do end up having to come back through, this cone would disappear, so we're not going to have this for any of the dark rooms in Eastern Palace, in the Palace of Darkness. This is more a convenience thing for you entering through and completing the standard open. As we find a map in Dark Cross. Now, Koi, I'm sure you've ran some Ambrosia Seeds. How do you feel about the setting on it?
I'm not a fan. I'm sorry, Boyd. I don't like Ambrosia that much.
Okay, what about it do you not prefer to regular standard seed?
I think it's not different enough. Like, most of the Ambrosia seeds I run, they don't really feel different than a normal seed. So it feels awkward having, like, some things are different, but it didn't really change much. But it's fine on the whole. Like, it's not like I hate playing it. We do get a bow and a Canis Mari in the back of the escape. So, nice find, although not really a big deal since everybody got bombs without trying.
We have one more check to make here in what is a part of the escape sequence, the chest that is in the actual sanctuary. From here, our runners are probably going to go into Kakariko Village, maybe check a lumberjack, go into Lost Woods, maybe. We'll see.
Ambrosia does have, like, some positive aspects to it. Like, it does make crystal dungeons nicer. Because, like, you know, you always go to all the crystals. So when you're there, it's nice to say, oh, well, I found one of the 2 items. Now I get to skip absolutely everything and just go kill the boss. But at the same time, it makes pendant dives worse. Like, when you go to Pendant Desert or something and you find your first item, you're like, oh, now I have to kill Lando to get the other item here.
And it always seems like whenever you do an Ambrosia Seed, that Tower of Hera is a pendant you don't need.
This is a really spicy routing decision from Illus here, heading over to Sahasrara. This is very much like an anti-meta decision.
Well, as you were saying, someone his caliber...
He does have the bow.
With that bow, makes this crystal dungeon a full clear if he's able to get through the dark rooms without any trouble. As we find some flippers in the vanilla mushroom spot in Lost Woods.
Yeah, he's not going to have too much trouble through Eastern. It's a crystal, he can full clear it. So this does make a lot of sense. It's just, 4 hearts isn't fun. So like you just get like a little bit bad RNG, and maybe you mess up the damage boost to the vanilla big key chest, and suddenly dying in Eastern is a real possibility. I'm not too worried about Illus here though.
In the Thief's Hideout in the Lost Woods, we found their big cachet of 300 rupees. So with those flips, Prayer is very close to that Zora money. He'll end up having about 300 rupes leaving the village if he doesn't pick up any more rupes inside.
Yeah, he'll get 50 for sure from just the pots in the well and Blind's Hideout. And like probably just finding some rupees in chests. He should have 500 leaving.
Nothing much in Blindside outside of a shield and a piece of heart. Lots of bombs. Finding 16 total bombs inside Blind's hut. As we see Illus make their way through the Eastern Palace. There are 3 potential items inside of Eastern Palace. We know for sure one is on the boss, the Armos. So just looking for the big key and 2 additional items and then heading straight to the boss.
there is rupees there for Prior. Yeah, he's going to have pretty close to 500 leaving.
Which makes routing in that Zora with your South Shore even nicer.
Illus taking care of the Stalfos room here. Pretty nifty little trick there to kill 2 of the 4 Stalfos that spawn and get the other 2 to spawn in terrain, so they just straight up don't spawn. And there's the lane for Prior. So his Eastern dive is going to be a little more efficient than Illus's, even for the best players. Like, dark rooms are slower than lit rooms.
Fortunately, Eastern is a relatively easy dark room to get through. It's just the switch room, and then the Stalfos pot key room.
Yeah, it's mostly just like sometimes you get really awkward RNG with the Stalfos and such. The Popos, especially in the back dark room, they can make your life a little harder.
As Illus getting through the dark rooms with relative ease.
Like, it's the 8 bomb drop, but he was already past it. I'm sure he would have liked to pick it up, but I'm not too worried about it.
With those anti-fairies bearing down on you and taking a damage boost here to activate this chest, it makes sense to let it go.
And picks up a hook shot. Nice. Yeah, that's a really dangerous room when you're on so few hearts. Definitely a reset point if you mess it up in like an NMG run. So like coming here where you don't reset. We don't reset in rando. Like, you just have to accept that you lost a bunch of time. So that's why I was a little worried about him. But he does manage to do it, taking minimal damage, and picks up the safety hearts.
As we see Prier heading their way over into the Eastern Palace. Now, this dark room that Illus is in is a little bit more difficult. There's 4 little squid boys, 2 of the... I always forget what the...
Igor.
Igors. You want to kill the right Igor for a small key, then head up to the upper left to unlock a door. Did that with relatively no difficulty as we're progressing through here.
He actually did it in a really weird way. He ended up killing both Igors.
Better safe than sorry.
Yeah, he gets through without taking a death, so that's a win as far as anyone is concerned. Having a sword does make that quite a bit easier. Because with the sword held out, you can see your position in the room relative to where you came in. And if you do get in trouble, you just let go of B and it spins everything away from you. Illus setting up for a bottom right kill. This is an unusual strat. Typically people go for top right, but you can quick kill off the bottom right, just like a few frames slower. He doesn't get the quick kill, but it's still pretty quick.
Just 20 rupees on the Armos, but more importantly, it has our first crystal here in the seed a little bit less than 12 minutes in.
Yeah, unfortunately, Ambrosia didn't help us at all in this dungeon. The vanilla big key chest, sometimes you get to skip it if you can rule it as a map or compass, but map and compass in the front, so you have to go to that one.
So it looks like Illus is going to be hitting up the South Shore routes here. We're going to be checking into the dam, which has 2 items, a mini Moldorm cave, which has 5, an ice rod cave, which has 1, and possibly some fake flippering. Oh, nope, skipping the dam.
Yeah, the problem with Illus's route right now is he only has 1 bomb, so he can open mini Moldorm cave, but if he doesn't get bombs in here, he's going to have to go somewhere other than ice rod cave. That may be his intention completely, like maybe he never intended to go to ice rod cave, but it's not going to be an option at all if he doesn't get a bomb here. Oh, flute, that'll do it. Don't even care about bombs now. All right, so Illus's route to South Shore definitely paying off. His trip to Kakariko is going to be a bit more efficient, activating the flute while he's there the first time.
We'll see if Illus decides to give us a lumberjack check or not. as we see Prayer going through what were dark rooms for Illus. These ones a little bit more bright. Prayer able to pick up that 8 bomb pack. Unfortunately, he found approximately 2,000 bombs inside Kakariko Village.
Yeah, it's funny. Prior gets the 8 bomb drop, but it's not useful. Illus gets it, or Illus doesn't get it when it would have been useful.
Picking up the hook shot and that vanilla big key chest. Heading their way down is Prior to take out some Armos. As Illus picks up their flippers with that flute, just going to be able to tooty-doot over to the Ice Rod Cave, pick that up, and route in Zora almost perfectly.
Yeah, a little awkward here for Illus because he doesn't have any bombs. He needs bombs for Kakariko, so he's going to have to go buy some from the shop. But because you're coming from the top, you're walking past the bomb lock locations to get bombs and then walking back up.
Yeah, unfortunately, Illus doesn't know that there's approximately 2 million bombs inside Blind's hut for him.
Yeah, he could just gamble it and just go to the blind side out on the well and hope for bombs there. But with so many rupees, like, you're typically better off just buying some.
As we see the quick Igor kills over on Prior's screen. Gonna see if they're able to get that quick kill on the Armos.
Yeah, he goes after bottom right, too. That's weird.
Yeah, I've been seeing this a lot. I learned the top right and just... Oh, okay.
He gets the quick kill, though. Yeah, top right's faster. It's not much faster. It's just frames. The lineup for the bottom right is a bit easier.
And I'm going to assume Prior's going to be heading to that south shore. We know that flute is inside Mini Moldorm Cave. We do not know what's hiding behind Dam or an Ice Rod Cave, so perhaps we'll have a little bit of sync here once Illus is done with their Kakariko Village.
Looks like Prior is headed to the dam first.
Of course,
I'm curious if Illus is going to go down and check Library and Race Game. It's not an uncommon play if you have to route Kakariko in this manner, where you finish at the top of the village, that you just don't go down and check those 2 locations. I believe we saw them from Prior and they didn't have anything.
No, they did not.
And all the bombs. And Illus is like, oh man, I could have saved 50 rupees. He doesn't talk like that. That's how I talk.
Still pretty close to that Zora money. We know there's more rupes over in the Kakariko well. Should be pretty close to Zora money.
He'll end up being a bit shy, I think. But not by a ton. Houlihan is currently not an option for either of our runners, though. They do need either the glove or the boots to do a Houlihan. Prior, of course, doesn't need a Houlihan. He's got plenty of money.
Since both of our runners have those slips, you can't do the fallen hole with the flips clips. And there's the Zora money for Illus. This is going to be pretty close to our players giving themselves a high five.
Oh, there was more rupees in the well than I thought there were. Yeah, I thought he was going to be shy, but he has plenty.
Yeah, I thought there was a 50 rupe cachet in there, so... It was in that far right-hand chest. Prior's going to be slightly ahead, though not a significant difference. As we're going to see what's in the Ice Rod Cave today. Now, these crabs aren't too super friendly. They do 2 hearts of damage to you in green mail, and they randomly go in cardinal directions.
Yeah, crabs are pretty terrifying. Both of our runners have plenty of hearts, though. Like, as long as you can take 1 hit, you don't feel too dangerous, or too too at risk, and then with the sword and the hook shot in your hand.
All right,
Crabs
Prior
are
was
not going to be too scary.
saving and quitting, heading into Sanctuary. Are they going to jump into the pool over here to the left for flips checks, or?
I have no idea.
Or is he going to turn in flute? Okay.
Yeah, he's activating the flute. That's right. Okay.
Okay, that's interesting. Going over, turning in the flute, probably heading back over to 8 to do the flips.
It would have been faster for him to just save and quit out of Mini Moldorm Cave, activate the flute, and then fly to Ice Rod Cave. But it's not a huge difference either way. But it's little routing decisions like that. They add up immensely over the course of an entire seed. Second here, second there.
It's just unfortunate that they have been able to find any glove upgrades. Otherwise, a flute, turn in the mushroom, lift up a stone, go do your flips checks with Zora, take a pull over. You really can't do that because of that big heavy rock that's in the way. As it looks like Illus is going to be checking race game and library.
Yeah, I mean the mountain is definitely a dense place that they both have access to right now. The flipper area is a dense place that they both have access to. Illus wants to make sure he's not going to be orphaning anything though, so he's coming down here to check these 2 items. Because there's things we could find that would make both of those trips better.
As perhaps we'll see our first real divergence between our runners. Nope. Illus is going to be checking the flips checks as well before heading up Death Mountain. Now we do have everything that we need for Death Mountain checks outside of Hera and what's on Spectacle Rock without a mirror or hammer. But we
Illus
can...
is notably skipping the hobo here. It's not going to punish him. It was just a piece of heart, but that's a significant amount of time if he ends up not doing it.
As we have our big, goldy, shiny, reflective shield early on in the seed, 21 minutes in. You're going to be bouncing those Lionel fireballs real easy.
Sphere 1 mirror shield. It's nice.
And an armor upgrade here on Zora Ledge will be interesting to see if either of runners decide to go pick that up.
Yeah, the thing with the armor upgrade is if it saves you from dying later in a seed, it was totally worth. If it doesn't, you wasted like 20 seconds. So not picking it up is kind of like betting on your own execution.
And with it being progressive, you know there's another armor in the item pool.
It's like Illus doesn't feel like betting on his own execution. We have no idea where the other swords are, where the other armor is. So better safe than sorry.
Especially early on, picking up a blue mail 21 minutes in is not bad. As our fish friend, who asks for a lot of money, really doesn't give us too much in the way of progression with a piece of heart. Not the worst thing you could find, but really, honestly, not a good thing. As we're going to make our mountain climb, we are going climbing, spelunking through caves, finding old men and items.
I would love to see an Agina check soon. Like it's a pretty safe play to do Agina when you have the flute. Like Agina's not going to get much better than it is right now with this flute. So one thing Illus and Prior could do is save the old man, flute to Agina, and then save and quit out of Agina back to the mountain.
As we see Prior turning in their mushroom, we're not going to see the fake batter glitch here. Oh, he reset the system, so saving that mushroom in case there is an opportunity to do that fake powder to summon our vampiric bat.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of fake powder. Generally, just because it's a long amount of time to check a single location that's out of logic. But if you have the opportunity to save and to reset the console after turning in the mushroom and keep the mushroom, like there's literally no reason not to do it.
As our old man friend didn't have anything for us inside Spectacle, was just a big $20. We have more bombs on top of it. as we're going to be heading over into the east side of Death Mountain, into Paradox Cave and a Spiral Cave. Now, what our runners are really not hoping for is, ironically, possibly a Master Sword or a Cape, which would put Aga into logic, as we haven't found a glove or a hammer yet.
Yeah, climbing Aga Tower isn't any fun. I don't think they'd be too upset if that's what happened, though. Because, you know, if I have to do Aga, then so does my opponent. So it's just another opportunity to create a lead with my execution, rather than my luck.
Well, there's our first glove. We are one item away officially from Dark World access, either a Titan's Mint or a hammer. Good possibility we'll find either one of those inside of East Death Mountain, or as you were saying, that Agina check. Oh, there's Cape. That is not what you want to find.
So I don't know about you, but this looks like an Aga seat to me.
Yeah, with 2 potential checks left.
And it's not just that we have access to Aga. We also have glove and hookshot, and we also have the bow. So when we do kill Aga, we have places to go.
Yeah, that opens up availability with pod. You have already a whole bunch of routes. If you don't want to dip pod, if it's a pendant, you can head over to the west side and hit the Village of the Lost, or the Dark Village, and hit Thieves Town, hit all the village checks, go and route in your South Dark World with it, so lots of different routing decisions that you can play with, should it be an Aga seed. As we're going to see what's in Spiral Cave here in a second. It's a bottle. Well, that opens up one more option. We just have Agina and the sick child inside of Kakariko Village to check before.
And Illus also has a hobo.
That's correct, but we know hobo is nothing.
Looks like that's what Illus is going to do now. Go straight to that hobo. Yeah, given how few locations are left before Aga, I imagine both of them will check everything before making that dive.
As we saw that the floating island today just has a little piece of love for us today. Now, Spiral Cave can be fun if you've got the boots, but we know where those are at. They're somewhere in the Dark World, so we've got a hookshot strats this.
Clearly, they should go kill Aga to get access to Dark World locations.
Yeah, it's very possible that the boots are right there on the pyramid. The very first check that we could possibly make after that Aga kill. Oh, missing the duck. It's always the worst feeling.
Illus and Prior going after Sick Kid now, so they're pretty much step and step here after all is said and done. Both runners have nothing but Agina and Aga.
How much do you want this to be like the book? So that way they have to force themselves to dip possibly a boots-locked desert palace.
Well, I'm not a big fan of coming up with really rude situations like that, but I think the rudest one that could happen is like Mirror and Pendant Hera. And this is the hammer. But just 300 rupees. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an Aga seed.
A fighter sword, cape, breaking bat, Aga seed. Our players do have bow that will make the climb a little bit easier, especially with those heavy guards in the first room.
Did Prior pick up like an extra heart piece that Illus skipped?
I do believe so.
Because they've done all the exact same locations. And yet Prior has more hearts. So like I was saying before, Aga Tower it's all execution. There is no RNG, item locations or anything. It's just how well can you deal with these rooms. I expect we'll see a lot of bow usage here.
The only place that I can think of where that extra heart piece may be was the flooded area after you drain the dam.
It was 20 rupees.
Okay.
So after we kill Aga, you have options. Like with the bow, it heavily leans towards pod. A lot of pod is often locked by the bow. But at the same time, we have glove and hookshot, which means we have access to the entirety of West and South Dark World as well. But both of them feel really bad because we don't have that hammer. No matter what direction you go, you're leaving something behind somewhere.
And fully knowing that the boots are somewhere in Dark World, if you decide to take a path different from your opponent and you don't find those boots, you're going to feel a little bit behind if they happen to have found them.
Yeah, I think the boots hint does favor going towards West Dark World more, just because of those boots. And that's why we call Illus Eagle Eye.
Well, it's high noon somewhere.
Illus unfortunately getting the bad RNG. Having to kill that extra red guard. Oh, pick up the arrows prior! Oh no. It's probably fine.
Yeah, you can stun your opponents with the hook shot. That might change your course of routing going into pod, but I do believe there is an arrow pickup in there.
Yeah, there's places to get arrows in pod. It's just they're locked by the mimic room. So, like, ideally, if you're going to pod, you want to have at least 4 arrows. So you can kill the mimics without having to pick up the pod.
As we almost have perfect synchrony here in our Agra fight, we play a little bit of a game here with Aga 1 and Aga 2 where we guess how many blue balls. Chat, guess how many we're gonna have.
It's always 3.
Corey's got 3. I'm gonna be evil and say 4.
3's just the safe pick. Like, the statistics are just in favor of it being 3.
Or you could price of write it and guess 99 cents for 1 penny. So far, only 1 blue ball. Now, the first rotation, the first ball in the first rotation after lightning is always guaranteed an energy ball. From there, the next 3 are 50-50s.
That was a really big mistake from Illus. Oh my god.
Yeah, you gotta sit through another lightning rotation. Oof. They'll be able to kill Aga here with this energy ball, but... a pyramid check, just some fairies.
Green pendant pod. Yeah, I think we're gonna go West Dark World.
Blue pendant and mire. That's always a blessing in disguise.
I mean, you can make the case that pod feels better when it's a pendant here, since you won't have to kill the boss necessarily. That's apparently what Illus is thinking. He's going straight to pendant pod.
Well, you do know that Helmasaur does have an item, so at best you're only going to be able to find 4 in the front. It is green pendant, though, so if you happen to find Hammer in here, you can go kill Helmasaur and add to that collection and potentially have something for yourself on the old man in his closet.
Yeah, hammer is definitely the big ticket item for Illus to find here in Pod, but there are other things that could make this totally worth. For instance, the mirror would unlock a lot of locations that Prior is going to have to skip.
A fire rod wouldn't be half bad, or potentially, well, the boots. Dark World does not count dungeons, correct?
Right, so the boots are definitely not in Pod.
So Prior going over to Catfish was essentially a sanity check to make sure that they weren't the boots.
Yeah, you kind of have to do Catfish in that position because that's the only time you're ever going to do Catfish. So, like, if he didn't do Catfish right there, he's effectively saying, I'm never doing Catfish.
So we see we're not bow locked here in Pod, so more than likely, though, Illus is going to go over and pick up the 2 chests that are bow locked. Now, if we happen to find a dungeon item, 2 dungeon items, or a progressive item here, we know that we don't have to do the vanilla big key, because it'll be a key for a key, as we find ether on the bumper ledge. So it's going to be our first medallion of our seed. Don't quite know if we need it or not. Ideally, you only need to open up Turtle Rock.
I like skipping it if I was Prior and just waiting to find out if ether's actually required. Because it does take a while to get this item.
As we see Illus routing Pod, ideally very well, going to check that first hanging bridge check in the arena, dropping down, getting the tile item from the pot switch, now killing the mimics. As we enter our dark village over with Prior into the C-shaped house. Just some bombs. We're really explosive over here in the village this seed.
Illus setting up his death warp. And it's 2 keys on the right side. Aw. So this has some implications. First of all, the vanilla big key chest is not guaranteed to be a small key anymore. So he may choose to check that now or later. He can put it off since he already has the big key. But it also means that both the Dark Maze and the Harmless Hellway are logically locked behind the bow. And the bow is like the main reason that Illus came in here in the first place. So if we find progression here, we're looking for it in those locations.
As we see a chess game having a book. Finding some strategy inside of this chess game. Perhaps you can find some cheat ways of getting more cash inside of it with that book. So we're going to get our Thieves' Town dip and clear, knowing that Blind has an item that reduces the possibility that something's locked behind that big chest. There's our first item, just a single roop in the front of Thieves' Town. 2 more items to be found before Blind. Hopefully we'll find them before we have to eliminate the big chest.
Yeah, this is really where like you see Ambrosia having a difference. So like if he finds 3 items in the front here, he has no worries about going to finish the boss. There's no chance of him orphaning something in the big chest. Where on Illus's side, like he knows at least one of the 5 items in this dungeon he has no access to.
As we see Illus here. Oh, not setting up the hammer jump. Just gonna go in and do this vanilla.
Yeah, no really reason to do the hammer jump at this point. Since he doesn't have the hammer anyway, so like he's just gonna save and quit after the big chest. And if he does happen to find the hammer, he can always just death warp.
Finding arrows in that dark basement here.
Yeah, and he's found only 5 of the 6 small keys, so Harmless Hellway will be a small key. Can safely skip that.
As we see Prior entering the not harmless Hellway. Blue Mail helps out with that, but those Patrick monsters and Fire Stank they're not polite.
Illus, it's Compass. Illus. Oh my god. It's Ambrosia! Oh, Illus. It's hard. It's really hard to hold that in your head when you play like so many seeds and so few of them are this mode.
Luckily, that's only, what, 6-7 seconds maybe?
Yeah, it's not a huge deal. But it adds up, you know? Everything adds up.
Yeah, it does. So nothing really important in pod for Illus today. Just having the knowledge that the last item on Helmasaur might be something, and not having to full clear it again should you actually have to kill Helmasaur.
Yeah, for the time being, this is a pretty big burn for Illus's routing. That pod dive was nothing. He got nothing to show for the time he spent there. But he may get that time back if Prior opts to go to pod later. And maybe he even gains time if Prior goes to pod later with the hammer and still gets nothing after killing Helmasaur. And Illus just never comes back.
So we're not looking for a small key. We found a Mr. Sword, though.
Yeah, no small key at this point means the small key has to be in the big chest. So Prior not being punished for his hammerless dive. And in fact, rewarded with that sword.
Now, fortunately enough, 2.5 hearts. You could still do blind relatively easy by sticking on script. If you do the same thing every time, blind will do the same thing every time. Now, my question is for you, Koi. Have you gotten better at third phase since you've made your blind scripting video?
Yeah, but I didn't want to remake the video because I feel like the main purpose of the video is for new players, and if they see me sucking at the third phase, then they feel more confident about also sucking at the third phase, which everyone does.
And even at worst, our players do have that Cane of Burna. You could have been popping blue cane strats on the last phase and taking down blind with pretty good ease.
Yeah, there was essentially zero chance of Prior dying there, even if he didn't even know the blind script.
So we do see where our red crystals are at. They are in Skullwoods and Turtle Rock. So more than likely not seeing the fairy fountain inside of Ganon's home.
I believe Prior skipped Skull Woods, right? I don't
that's correct.
Seeing him go in there.
Yeah, it's not really worth the dip since it's only one item you could possibly find in there.
Yeah, I definitely understand it being less worth in Ambrosia like that because you know only one item as it could be accessible and maybe zero. But it does feel really dangerous to do that when your only access to Skull Woods is to go from the Aga portal across the river and then 3 screens west.
Yeah, and if it happens to have the hammer or a mirror, you're gonna be.
It's a pretty significant time loss if the hammer is in Skullwoods.
As we find our stumpy friend only having $20 for us, or dollary dues, as they say in the Dark World. Gonna have to take the long way over to Hype Cave without any gloves.
Looks like Illus is going to make the Skullwoods dive, so we'll be able to see if this pays off for him. Like I said, if this is the hammer or something that leads to the hammer, Prior's going to lose quite a bit of time from not doing this.
As Prior's entering into the Hype Cave, finding first a piece of heart, full heart, another heart, a piece of heart, a mirror, and a single rupee. So that mirror, I'd grade this a 3.5 out of 10 hype.
That's a really rude mirror location in this seed. Like, the only way to get to Hype Cave was to walk past Cave 45 and Graveyard Ledge. And now all the mirror's doing for us is getting us Bombo's tablet and Hera, which is a pendant.
Looks as though Prior's taking that short little walk over to Cave 45. Yes, you can go over and check the Bombos tablet as well, but really just kind of a little upset that you had a little bit of a bad luck with the mirror being there, and nothing in Cave 45. Now, these do not count as Dark World, so we know the boots aren't going to be on them. Just trying to find that hammer for significantly easier access to Dark World, or perhaps even a Titan's Mitts.
Yeah, I think when the uncle tells you that the boots are in Dark World, it's you don't go looking for it. It's just you expect to find it while doing normal checks.
As we find our big item here in Swamp Palace, it is the half magic, so we know something is on Mothula. That is the only check left here in Skullwood. So half magic helpful, but not really what you were kind of hoping for in this day.
Yeah, I think overall this is going to end up being just a time loss for Illus. He would not have been punished for skipping it. Prior taking a dip into Swamp Palace here. I like this play a lot. Like I said before, like the only way to get back to this area is to come from the Aga portal and go all the way around. So if you leave something behind here, it hurts. So even though this is a slower check, you know, it feels like a very safe play.
Yeah, if it happens to be Hammer, you then are able to full clear Swamp Palace and get all the items inside. It's just a red goo. Not a big bust play. You were right here, as you were saying. Your only access so far has been the Pyramid Portal, and you'd really not want to head back this way walking. So as we're looking at potentially places where we're looking, well, you've got desert right here that is a crystal. You're going to be hoping that it's not boots locked. You know that you're eliminating one item possibly being on that torch.
Yeah, I could definitely see going into desert right here. It looks like Prior has other plans. Or maybe he's floating there? No, he's... Where are you going? Oh, we're going to Pod. He's going to Pod.
Yep.
Maybe go up to Graveyard Ledge first, although that's pretty slow. So this is that time that Illus spent in Pod being refunded back to him if Prior does go in there.
That's interesting, to not go ahead and just see if Desert has that progression for you, since you did pick up the book in the Dark Village.
Yeah, I think the idea is that it feels gross to have to walk into Desert the slow way when you already have the flute and the mirror. Like, all you have to do is find the mitts, and like Desert's suddenly a much quicker check.
It's just unfortunate. We know that there's really not anything for you in the Palace of Darkness. It's still the probably the most correct play that you can make.
Yeah, it's definitely the most dense play he has available to him. It makes sense. It just means that Illus is no longer going to be behind, or not as behind.
Because your other option outside of a single item, possibly boots locked Desert Palace, was making your way up to Hera.
Yeah, it's just Graveyard Ledge and Hera. It's really gross.
And Hera being a pendant, you really don't want to make that climb unless you have to. Though with the book and Master Sword, you are able to route in that tablet there that is normally ether, so that does give you an additional item, but it still leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
I definitely don't fault Prior for this play. I think going to Hera would have been better for him though, because like in the event that you skip Pod and your opponent didn't, then you're either ahead or behind. And if you go to Pod, you don't get ahead. You even up to slightly less behind.
Yeah, at best you are figuring, okay, I'm probably getting even or making them even, and since we know it's not much progression at all, it's one of those things where just you're going with item density. It makes the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, like it. Yeah, you could you could argue for either one. It's not like one is definitely better than the other. I just think going to pod here for Prior is more like cutting his losses, and going to Hera is pushing his advantage, his potential advantage.
Yeah, and honestly, there isn't really a good choice to be made here. You're either going with what's dense or what you may be able to fully clear. So it's just weird that you wouldn't just open up Desert just to see what was the first item, if it was boots locked or not, and then heading into pod.
Let's just say something that everyone will be able to agree with. All of these options suck.
Yes, these are all terrible options.
There is no clear you should be doing this option. Everything can be reasonably can be reasoned to being a good play.
It's just nice conjecture to have as we see our players do things that we've already witnessed. See if Prior decides to do a hammer jump here or not. As you were saying earlier, there really isn't too much of a
reason to do it since he has the mirror.
Yeah. Really no good reason to do it other than maybe saving yourself a second or two. As we see Illus complete Thieves Town for their second crystal of the seed. Going to be doing the South Dark World checks here momentarily. Going to be finding the mirror in Hype Cave. Now from here, it'll be a good question as to what Prior does. Do you head up to Hera? That is technically your most dense checks that you can make with that tablet in hand with the book. Or do you do the orphan checks that are in logic for you in Graveyard Ledge and possibly a Desert Dip?
I don't know. Like for Prior's gonna feel like super behind following this pod play, like even more behind than Illus will feel, even though they're gonna be even. Because Prior knows that he could have made the other play and skipped this entirely.
As it looks as though Prior's going to be checking that big chest. We know it's Compass, thanks to the beautiful man on commentary Koi figuring out the pod logic like that.
It's not complicated. You make it sound like I got like spreadsheets and formulas over here.
You got a big yellow notepad.
There's 2 locations left and an item, and the item has to be on the boss. Like, it's not. Come on.
It's more difficult for some of us, okay?
What feels really bad is Prior could have skipped the. Like he couldn't have skipped the big chest because he didn't know. Wait, no, he could have skipped. Yeah, he could have skipped both of them if he was watching.
Yep. It looks as though Prior's going to be heading up the mountain into Hera. Again, playing the most dense checks that you have is absolutely this. I don't want to say safe because that's not necessarily true either. Just the best call at this moment, just with the worst possible checks you could have. As we see Illus pick up their mirror in Hype Cave, going to discover that Tablet and K45 have nothing for us today. Maybe doing that Desert Dip?
He's going into a swamp. Yeah, he's going into swamp. This is the same reason Prior did. It's so punishing if this is the hammer.
Again, absolutely a perfectly acceptable call to make.
Ether Tablet not paying off, just a piece of heart. Although, nice clutch full heal.
Lots of health, lots of shields in this seed.
Prior intentionally losing his sword beams, I'm sure.
Just not in the way, much in the way of Dark World access. As we find the big key here in the switch room in the front of Hera, are we going to see the Hera pot?
Probably not. Oh, he switches to hookshot though. Nope, no hairbot.
Knowing that you only have one item before the boss.
Yeah, if it was fire locked, it does make a lot more sense to do Haripot and Ambrosia. But Bootsless Haripot is slower than Boots Haripot. So since they have the big key, there wasn't much reason to do it, unless you're really, really good at it.
Yeah, Haripot is one of the things I haven't quite put into my routing with Hera yet.
Alright, Illus is out of easy, nice checks. Oh no, he still has K45.
As we find a big heart here in the big chest of Hera. We know our last item is on Moldorm. Is it Hammer? We don't know. As Illus heads over to K45 here, will be interesting to see if they take the walk up to Graveyard Ledge or decide to do something completely different.
Prior taking an unfortunate fall there to Moldorm, and I have to walk back up.
That Moldorm was super aggressive. It was all up in the business, wanting those huts.
Desert.
Seeing 10 arrows up on the desert ledge, we know that we only have one item to find here in the front. The big hope here is not boots locked. As we see Prior get a worm kill. Going to be picking up a pendant and a piece of heart. Our progress was not in Tower of Hera. Illus getting the first check here in Desert Palace is just a map.
Oh my god, it's Graveyard Ledge. Wow. Okay, this seat sucks. like maybe like one person in a race of 50 people would have gone to Graveyard Ledge first and not last location it. So it's not at all surprising that both of our runners are going to last location Graveyard Ledge. Oh, Briar's not. He's not going to Desert.
This is interesting. Really not wanting to check that Desert until he's got the boots, which makes perfect sense. Knowing that you have one less real item in Desert for it to be on the torch, it raises the likelihood that you are boots locked to a 40% chance that you're going to need to bonk that torch to get progress in that dungeon.
Yeah, it's just given their options after finding the mirror, Graveyard Ledge was the least dense and the slowest check per minute or whatever. So like it makes a lot of sense that they both put it off for so long. But at the same time, like if you know it's the worst one and you assume everyone else is gonna last location it, going there early can be like a huge benefit.
Yeah, that's tough with that mirror location being in Hype Cave, your only Dark World access being the pyramid. Oof. So, is this Hammer or is this Titans?
The Hammer and Graveyard Ledge with Mirror and Hype Cave. Wow. That's gross.
So now you have even worse plays. I mean, that Hammer only really gives you Helmasaur.
Helmasaur and Spike Cave and Swamp.
So, yeah, and so the best play would be going into Swamp here. It is a crystal. You'd be able to full clear it. It looks as though Prior's going to be doing a Skullwood step, just going to be finding half magic in the Bumper Stalfos room.
Yeah, this is kind of surprising that he's going Skullwoods here.
So after you find Hammer and Graveyard Ledge, Koi, do you gamble and assume the boots are in Spike Cave?
No, definitely not.
Even though you've basically checked everything else that's kind
versus Swamp?
Well, you know that the boots are in Dark World. And I'm pretty sure Spike
There's other
Cave counts as Dark World.
I think Dark Death Mountain's also Dark World.
So...
And I mean, the boots are awesome. Like, everybody loves the boots. The boots make everything faster. But if you're spending minutes going out of your way to get them, that kind of cuts into the time advantage you gain from having them. Compared to just getting them on the way later.
But we happen to know that Desert is boots locked. Prior doesn't know that.
Yeah, but we don't know the boots are in Spike Cave. If I knew the boots are in Spike Cave, then yeah, sure.
Well, I'm just thinking of possible Dark World checks. It's just Pyramid Fairy, Spike Cafe, and then whatever else is in Dark Mountain.
Yeah, it's a lot of checks over in Dark Death Mountain. Like, it's at this point, it's most likely that the boots are going to be locked by the Titan Smiths.
So, Illus going to go get their hammer from Graveyard Ledge.
I'm not sure what Prior's plan here is. He already found one of the items in the dungeon, and because it's Ambrosia, we know the other is on Mothula. I guess he's just going for a pet check? No, he's leaving. Oh, he's going back. I'm confused.
Yeah, it looks as though probably going to do a ped check. You don't have back of Skullwood's access without that fire rod to burn,
this
to
is
burn that alien.
Or he thinks he has the fire rod for some reason.
He's got the mirror out, going to check that ped. From there, I guess that makes sense, because then you can just flute to wherever it is that you're going next, which is probably more than likely your Swamp Palace.
Just a little piece of love on that pedestal.
As we see Illus get their hammer. We may be seeing a high five here, as both of our players are probably going to be heading into Swamp Palace.
Oh, Prior going gambly here. We're going Pendant Helmosaur.
Interesting.
Yeah, you gotta think he feels really bad about that pendant dive instead of following the mirror, and he wants it to have been worth the time. And it is 2 items, like Green Pendant and the guaranteed item on the boss.
And you've got that mirror for a quick little walkover to turn it into Sasra Ladida.
I mean, we use the word gamble a lot, and sometimes erroneously, but I think this is pretty clear. Like, going to kill a pendant boss for 2 items versus going to a crystal dungeon with 6. This is the lower percent play for sure.
Well, that's why I was asking you, do you go ahead and just gamble on Spike Cave with having the hammer now?
I mean, I'm not saying, like, going to Spike Cave is wrong or anything. I'm just saying it's a lower percent play. Like, it's unlikely to pay off.
This seed has been a lower percent routing, though. So, I'm liking it, Prior. I'm liking it. It's gutsy.
Yeah, gutsy's a good word for it. Absolutely.
And sometimes you gotta play gutsy.
Like, there's a world where Prior finds something really good in here, but Illus also finds something good in Swamp that leads him away from going to Pod. Where whatever Prior finds here, it's not going to keep him out of Swamp because Swamp's crystal.
Yeah, honestly, the one thing that you could find in here that might help you out, well, there's 2 that I'm thinking of, is either the Fire Rod or a Progressive Sword. That would give you an advantage, because then you're going to be able to clear out Skullwoods and do a little bit more damage to Amothula and any other bosses you might have to come into contact with. Or potentially a medallion that you need to unlock Turtle Rock with. That
Yeah.
would be a big advantage for Prior if they're able to find that.
Yeah, the best thing to find in any out-of-the-way location your opponent might skip is an item that is required but doesn't lock very many things. So, like what you're saying, like a required medallion or the ice rod, things like that.
Having a little bit of trouble with the terrapins. They're not too friendly. As we watch Illus get that vanilla compass chest, and it's silvers. So Illus
a nice find.
going to have a little bit of an easier time with certain bosses going forward. Specifically, your Argus fight here. Just one single silver arrow to the eye, and he's going to be dead. As we get our Helmosaur fight here from Prior. It's 6 or 7 arrows to kill Helmosaur. I always forget.
8.
It's 8.
Oh my god, it's the bits.
There's the Titan bits. The big brain over on Prior that gives us our Dark Death Mountain access to what is more than likely our boots access. The gamble paying off.
Like, it's good for Prior that he went to Pod before Swamp, because now, like, maybe later in the seed he has the opportunity to go mode Swamp, but it's not really that bad for Illus, because after finding nothing in Swamp, he's just gonna go to Pod. So if Prior just full clears Swamp later in the seed, they end up being even.
Let's see what Sasra has for us. Just some bombs. So, yeah. Looking at Dark Death Mountain more than likely for Prior here. Going to see what that medallion for Turtle Rock is, what's in that Paradox Cave, or in the Super Bunny Cave, and Hookshot. As we see an Argus fight from Illus. Not too bad with the Master Sword. Blue Mail, 15 hearts. This should be just pull and zerg. With that single silver shot, Illus going to pick up their item, which is just a red rupee. Now, we did find the compass in the back. Do you go ahead and redip and check left side?
I think Illus should, 100%. Like, there just isn't enough game left for him to check to risk it. He may choose to skip it, though. Left side is very slow, and it is only one item.
Alright, he is going back in as we see Prior entering into the portal to Dark Death Mountain. We need the Ether, which is what we have.
Fortunately, we also need the Fire Rod and the Ice Rod to full clear this, so probably going to at least check the overall checks here before going in.
You do have the availability of one item with the Red Cane. But as you said, more than likely checking the density items here, especially since more than likely you've got your boots over here somewhere.
Yeah, we don't have that many Dark World locations left after this. It's just Spike Cave and Myers Shed. Hammer Pegs, I guess.
As Hookshot Cave was just slightly blue today with a blue meringue and a blue goo. In order for it to be fully blue, we needed to find a blue armor in there. Or perhaps a Master Sword, or some flips. As Super Bunny has for us cash and bombs. We're left to Mire Shed, Spike Cafe, and Hammer Pegs for those boots. Now, do you go ahead and do that first check in Turtle Rock since you're up here?
I do. Looks like Prior's not going to, though.
Because then if that's a small key, you could then progress through to do a lot more of Turtle Rock.
Especially after not finding anything in the Dark Death Mountain checks, I would feel very pressured to go into Turtle Rock and make sure it's not some trolley location like Fire Rod in the first chest.
Because outside the Fire Rod checks, you can get everything up through Helmasaur.
Trinex?
Or Trinex, yes. When you're dealing with a boss
with certain key layouts, you can get really far in the dungeon, so it is a dangerous gamble. Or play, rather.
Well, there's our Fire Rod.
Flight Cave.
Yeah, when you're dealing with, quad pedal dinosaur-looking things, you sometimes confuse the names. So this is more than likely your Mire Shed checks. You may have the availability to enter into Mire. You really don't want to, it being a pendant. But Prior knows that there's nothing on the pedestal, so this just may be, I'm over here, I can do it if I have the availability to do it. As we see Illus head for their Helmasaur fight, going to find those Titans mitts. Not in the Mire Shed, so it seems as though hammer pegs are where our boots are going to be.
God, that's annoying.
And unfortunately for Prior, you need those boots for desert, but it looks like they're going to be heading over to do hammer pegs. Good job of remembering their routing and seed placement. They're going to be able to complete desert with relative ease with those boots.
Oh yeah, Pyramid Fairy. We forgot about that one. It could be there too.
That would be evil. I'm not thinking of that evil.
Why are you not doing Skull Woods? Do Skull Woods! I mean, you can go there anytime, I guess. Wants to find out if he uses the boots first.
That would be an evil placement for that boot. That would mean we find Ice Rod before the boots and have to do all of Turtle Rock. Not a bad play here, doing the Smith routing along with doing hammer pegs. So it's a 1 in 3 chance you're going to find your boots here. We know chat wants those boots being on Pyramid Fairy. I don't want the boots on Pyramid Fairy.
Alright, did we last location it? Yup.
Oh!
Thanks, Ambrosia. I really appreciate that boots hint. That didn't help me at all, even a little bit.
Oh, that's painful. Oh.
Oh, that's funny.
That makes me hurt. Oh, man. So, actually, that's not a bad thing now that I'm thinking about it. You know where the boots are gonna be. Ice Palace is a regular crystal. Unless you want an upgraded sword, you can go mode that.
Wait, Smith and Purple Chest are Dark World? Really? Oh, apparently they are, because that's totally consistent. Wow. How does that make any sense?
Okay.
Alright, that's ridiculous.
Okay.
Who wrote the hint logic?
Yeah, I thought, yeah, okay. So, okay, this isn't as painful, just more painful for our brains with the hints. So does that mean the tablets are Dark World too?
I don't know. It does seem inconsistent though that something like Cave 45 and Checkerboard Cave are Light World, but Purple Chest and Smith are Dark World. Even though like they're essentially the same thing. Like you have to be in the Dark World to get to them, but you're in the Light World when you get the item.
So that gives Prior a significant advantage here, being able to jet themselves through desert, going to be able to jet themselves through swamp. As we see Illus going through their mire shed. We'll see how fast or how quick they decide to go do the Smith checks. With the Mirror Titans, it is significantly quicker. As we're going to see a checkerboard check here from Illus.
Now, Illus may just be aware of what in the Dark World refers to as well, and he would know to do Smith sequence. He will definitely be checking Dark Death Mountain here first, though, and likely doing Spike Cave to get that Fire Rod.
As we prepare for our first Lamolus fight here in this seed. With Half Magic Fire Rod, I would be expecting Fire Rod strats from Prior. Illus is going to be able to use those silver arrows. Now the question becomes, if you find Ice Rod really quick for Prior, do you go mode everything else?
Why wouldn't you?
I don't know how confident they are in Master Sword spin strats on Ganon. That's a significant time sink if your opponent has Tempered compared to a Master Sword.
Yeah, but I mean, there's so many locations that you have to check just in go mode, right? Like you have to find the big key for Ganon's Tower, you have to find the big key and all the small keys in Turtle Rock. So you typically feel pretty confident that you're just going to find a sword on the way.
As Prior finds nothing in Checkerboard, Illus is going to find a Bloomerang and a Blue Potion here in Hookshot Cave. But as we know, that Fire Rod is in Spike Cave, which will give them access to Mothula, which I guess you can go do Skullwoods and then head over into the Smith checks if you wanted.
All right, looks like Illus will be going to get the Fire Rod. That was the last thing that could maybe punish him if he tried to skip this.
As we see Prior heading into Skullwoods here for a Mothman fight. With Blue Mail and 14 Hearts, you're going to be pretty beefy against this Flying Abomination.
It's kind of sad that the whole seed just comes down to an Ice Rod hunt here. I mean, their routes probably won't diverge that much. Like you kind of have to make the safer play here. Go to the Crystal Dungeons, open chests that are like on the way to things you have to do anyway.
As we prepare for this Mothula fight, I just want to remind chat that you can follow both of these runners. If you push in the command !R, you will find their Twitch channels. And there goes one Mothula. We find 20 rupees on him and a red crystal. Now, we know that Ice Rod cannot be on the Pyramid Fairy simply because Turtle Rock is that second red crystal.
Maybe we need a third category for the hints. So we have Light World, Dark World, and accessed from the Dark World. And then we can put all those mirror lock locations in that one.
Which we were able to follow this logic almost perfectly thanks to our volunteer tracker today, Dark Diplomat. So, chat, give out a big thank you for their hard work. We're
going after boots checks.
We're getting a lumberjack check.
Oh, you gotta do it blind. Boo. Ah, it's just bombos.
Alright, we know we don't need bombos. Oh, not doing Bonk Rocks or King's Tomb, okay. Going for the full clear of Ice Palace. Interesting. It is a crystal. It does have 3 items, so it makes sense.
Yeah, it's perfectly reasonable play. The problem with Ice Palace is that go moding Ice Palace versus full clearing it is quite a significant difference. So if you choose to full clear this and you don't get rewarded, you stand to lose a fair bit of time. But the same can be said for his other option, which is Swamp Palace. Left side is a significant dive to maybe get an Ice Rod, or to go straight to Turtle Rock after go moding everything and just hoping it's on the way and possibly having a double dip.
Well, there's our first item in Ice Palace. Only one more to be found before you hit that Cold Stare fight.
Often in a situation like this, you might see somebody check the Compass Room, which is the one you just checked, and the Freezer Room, and then the Big Chest if you got a big key, and otherwise go mode it. Can be pretty risky because the Ice Rod can be on the other side, or an Ice Tea.
As we saw a sanity check from Illus on the pedestal, just a little piece of love if you missed it earlier. Setting up the perfect fast Stalfos room for Prior. That room is the most satisfying room for me personally. It's just so easy once you figure it out, and they go down quick.
Looks like Illus taking a similar route to Prior, going after these Dark World locations to get those boots that he knows are required. Now, whether or not he knows that the Smith chain is all in the Dark World or not, I have no idea. But if you're doing hammer pegs anyway, it does make sense to do all of Smith chain. Even
Yeah,
if
with the mirror.
Be there.
Yeah, with the mirror, flute, you can route all of it in with relative ease. So no big key yet. Would really love an item here. Nope, just a compass.
So just a hook shot. Are we going around? We are. We're headed to Ice Tea. This is a full clear. Honestly, in Ambrosia, just like pseudo go moding this and skipping the right side, it makes more sense than normal because you know one of the items is on the boss.
Especially finding that early item in the very first chest. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to do, because then at worst you're just climbing up 2 additional rooms to go check the hammerlock stuff. There's a tempered sword, so we know our last item is on Cold Stare, so not a terrible way to route this in for where the items were placed.
He doesn't find what he's looking for, but in tempered sword, like, you're happy to see that. Prior.
Oh, no.
Ambrosia, it's Ambrosia! Oh no!
When you're getting into the seed and how weird it's been with routing, with having to do AGA and that mirror location and Hype Cave and the hammer on Graveyard Ledge, it's a little understandable that our players may be feeling a little bit of mental fatigue.
Yeah, this is this hurts. Alright, Illus does find his boots on purple chest. We'll be able to full clear desert now and be in that Ice Rod Go mode situation that Pryor's trying to deal with.
Just an unfortunate turn of circumstance here for Pryor. Depending upon how Illus routes himself in Ice Palace, gonna be losing some time on this nice little lead they've built up.
Yeah, I mean, Illus may opt to do the right side first, and like even knowing that it's Ambrosia, be unable to use it to his advantage if he does that.
My only guess is that either Pryor miscounted how many items they've received or have mistaken how many checks are total in Ice Palace.
I often forget what was in that first chest because you open one chest and then it's like 2 minutes of execution and then you get a second chest, so it can be difficult to remember sometimes.
Again, completely understandable with how this seed has been laid out. That mental fatigue coming into play, but should have a relatively pleasant cold stare fight. Fire rod shots do gold sword damage to cold stare, and tempered sword doing temper damage to cold stare. As we get a fetch quest item in the shovel.
Gross.
Now, interesting enough, we know that mushroom has nothing on it, and Pryor saved their mushroom. We did not check the magic batter with the fake powder glitch.
I'd totally be on board with him like checking the shovel on his way to Swamp. I don't think it's worth to go do Magic Bat though, out of logic. And at the end of the day, the Ice Rod can just be in Turtle Rock. Or the shovel. It could just be the shovel. Oh, look, it's the shovel, you guys. Amazing. How did I know?
And at 1 hour, 26 minutes, and 39 seconds, our first player to enter Go mode is prier57, representing the Magic Lamp Oil. So that's super nice. You're going to be able to Go mode all of Swamp Palace. The real item inside of Swamp were those silver arrows, but with a tempered sword, spin strats, and this one dungeon lead for Pryor. It's going to come down to execution for him throughout GT.
I'm really curious to see how Illus is going to route this. Like, you want to just find the second item in the Freezor chest and then go straight to the boss. Unfortunately, the second item is in the Ice Tea chest. And going to that costs a lot more time than any other single location in the dungeon. So it really just comes down to how thorough does he want to be.
And unfortunately, Illus ended up full clearing Swamp Palace here. Pryor's going to be able just to make some water come out, hookshot over, get a key, and go right to Argus.
Yeah, this is still pretty close, you guys. It really comes down to what Illus does in ice and then after ice. Like, if he doesn't do the shovel check immediately, Prior definitely has the lead. But this is going to be a very quick full clear, or very quick go mode of Swamp compared to what Illus did earlier.
All right, it's after this penguin room. It's going to be the moment of decision. Do you go straight up and go do the hammerlock checks, or do you go left and check freezer?
I think you always go Freezer here because it's Ambrosia. Because, you know, you find a piece of heart here, then you feel comfortable. You just go straight to the boss. But just a compass. Switching to hammer. This is, he's skipping iced tea, so no tempered sword. But he will get the shovel, which he needs. This is tense. Like, Prior's ahead. Like, I don't think there's any question on that. Prior definitely has the advantage, but it's not super far between them if Illus goes straight to the shovel.
Yeah, then it's just Turtle Rock execution and execution going up Ganon's tower.
I'm a little worried Illus is going to say, it's probably just Turtle Rock, in which case that kind of throws the whole game. Like, it's a reasonable play, it's just not the right answer in this one.
As we see Illus pick up that spade for digging up earth. We know it's Ice Rod, which is his go mode. As we see 2 crystal screens here.
Send your energy at Illus, guys. Send your energy. Shovel, shovel, shovel.
It's such a not out of the way, but kind of out of the way check. It's just 3 screens away from your house.
Flute 2-4. Flute 2-4. Flute 2-4. Oh, he's doing it!
All right.
This is fantastic for Illus. This will be his go mode. And he already did Swamp, so like he's just gonna head to Turtle Rock just like Prior, just a little bit behind. The sword difference is very impactful though. Prior does still have the advantage, both in time and in power.
But
Illus, he does have the silvers. You're right.
Yeah, Illus does have those silvers. So if he's able to pick up a sword upgrade somewhere, it's going to be just about an even fight.
I think I'd rather have temper than silvers. I think tempered's probably the bigger difference maker here, especially on this Trinex fight coming up. But silvers do save time on stuff like Ice Armos, Lamo 2, and Ganon itself is like 30 seconds.
Really, honestly, ideally, you want that tempered with silvers. If Illus is able to get that, that's going to be such a time save in that Ganon fight that it may actually be able to close the difference.
Oh, getting Dead Rock is not what Illus needs right now. Yeah, there may also just be a sword on the way. Like, if we just find a sword while looking for the small keys here in Turtle Rock, I think advantage swings closer to Illus in favor.
Yeah, there's only really one real key layout that is close enough to a go mode for Turtle Rock that you skip a small portion of the chest. You know, if you're able to find a couple small keys here with the big key in the fire-locked chest, you can do it. And unfortunately, that first chest was arrows. So more than likely, we're going to see a lot of laser bridge. Oh! Okay, it was able to get that last little fire torch there.
Sometimes you fire just a little too fast because you're trying to lead it so you can get the hook shot to it.
The question becomes, does Illus check Mimic Cave for a sword if he does not find one through progression? as we see Prior. Across the hallway, our players give themselves a nice little wave. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, this seed has been terrible. How are you feeling about it?
Thank you, Wilsha, for timing that for us. Illus entered Turtle Rock 65 seconds behind Prior.
That's really close.
Yeah, that's really close. That, like, taking a slightly different route in GT completely upends everything.
Yep, that's Illus finding a tempered sword, upending everything. That's a Moldorm bonk, upending everything. So a really close race after everything has been said and done, after Prior making that big play to do pod first to find the Titan's mitts.
Prior really dodging that bunny beam there. You didn't hit the switch though, buddy. Are you going outside?
Skipping that vanilla big key chest, having that extra key already.
All right, so Prior's going outside here. This is generally slower, but it does protect you against a very particular key layout.
It does make sense, as it looks like that vanilla big key chest was just a key for a key, potentially.
Yeah, the idea with going outside of the big chest is if both the big chest and the vanilla big key chest have a small key, then you can get all the way to Laser Bridge and not have enough keys to get to Trinex. But with the big chest just being a map, it can be safely skipped.
As we see, Illus used his very same strategy as Prior approximately 60 seconds ago.
So Illus will cut into Prior's lead a little bit if he skips the big chest outside. Of course, he'll lose some time on the Trinex fight. Illus taking the safe play, though.
It makes sense. At this point in the race, you're probably thinking, all right, this seed has been...
I disagree. I think you always skip the big chest.
As we see Prior just completely skipping Laser Bridge. Makes sense. You have that tempered sword for a nice, easy pig fight once you get there. You don't have to spin to win. You can slash.
And the small key was in the Crystal Roller Room, so both runners are going to be skipping Laser Bridge here. I mean, you can make a case for doing Laser Bridge, just like extra chances to get a sword or something, but like I think both of these runners feel pretty comfortable about like the rest of the game execution-wise. They don't need to go out of their way for it.
Now, of course, as we've been saying, the big question is does Illus pick up a sword upgrade going through all of this progression? That may change your philosophy in doing Laser Bridge. That's 4 checks that are right there. You have the mirror shield. And there is our Quake medallion. We have all 7 crystals, which means we have access to Ganon's Tower. Koi, you know what that means, right?
Do I need to put the command in, or does
No, I've got it for you.
Got it. Okay, I'll do the spiel. You type the command. All right, guys, we are headed to Ganon's Tower with our 7 crystals in Ganon's Tower. There are 22 item locations, one of which will contain the big key. If you'd like to play the game, all you have to do is guess 1 through 22 on which chest that big key will be found. We're going to follow Prior's count, even if Illus finds the big key first. The winner will be awarded imaginary Twitch points that do nothing. And if you also guess the correct answer but weren't first, you get a lesser amount. Everyone else is deemed incorrect, wrong, and a little dumb, but we won't make fun of them.
As we see hammer strats on our Trinex fight from Illus, making that fight significantly easier. You do lose a little bit of time from having to menu, but it's a lot better than swiping with that Mr. Sword. That's one chest. That's two for Ganon's Tower. It looks as though we're going to be going full right
Not
on...
full. Don't say full. It's only full if he goes to Ice Armos. Otherwise, it's just hybrid.
That's correct. You're right. I forget that Ice Armos is technically on the right.
Nobody goes full right. It's sad, because full right's awesome.
I do believe I was watching Chelsea Lynn last night, and she went full right.
Did it pay off?
No, it did not.
It's never full right. That's why nobody does it. It's still awesome, though. Oh, Prior with the best possible route to the big key. So Illus will not be able to save any time over him with GT big key routing. That was, I don't even know. What chest number?
That would be number 6.
Number 6. Congratulations, Teapot 3737. You are the smartest of all the people in chat.
And of course, thank you, Dark Diplomat, for getting those commands in the chat. You are a professional. As we see some mimics here making the climb up GT. This really honestly comes down to execution for Prior. That Tempered Sword's going to help out a whole bunch. Half Magic, Fire Rod also is going to be helpful. As we see,
taking the same route, so he won't be losing any time here versus Prior. But like you're saying, everything comes down to this Ganon's Tower climb, and Prior both gets there first and is better equipped for it. Like the silvers are nice and everything, but it's not not going to be enough to make up this difference on their own. Illus is going to have to play a lot better than Prior does.
Swipes.
To kill Ganon first.
Yeah, swipes versus spins is a huge difference. Illus really hoping to find a sword somewhere here on the climb with GT. Two-phase Lamola here from... Ooh, three-phase Lamola. That might allow Illus to make up a little bit of time since they do have those silvers, but that Mr. Sword on everything else before that Lamola's may just make that an even out. No need for Prior to worry about their magic. They do have a plethora of bottles, which does include a blue goo. Half magic as well makes the lighting these torches with lamp a breeze. As we watch Illus make their way through the first part of the climb in the gauntlet.
Illus doing a really fantastic job on the Master Sword climb. It is really easy to lose a ton of time here for not having Tempered Sword, but Illus is making it look easy. Putting that Fire Rod to great work. And Silvers here is going to give him a typically easier chance at getting the one cycle on Lambo and saving some time.
Oh, just missing it. Oh, it gets it.
The backup.
Nice.
Nice one cycle. So that Prior not even taking the time to get the full magic refill. He doesn't need it.
As we find ourselves in a Troll Dorm 2. Not trolly today. Not with that Tempered.
Still more time for Prior to lose. This room, especially.
Yeah, even though you have red mail couple of bad angles on Aga 2. A death here would be absolutely the worst thing ever.
Oh, he's not gonna die. He might have like extra cycles though, I'll give you that. Nope,
Nice
starting with the triple though. Prior not giving Illus a chance.
Only a single there, but should be able to get a nice, clean 3 cycle on our favorite wizard.
Illus knows how big finding a sword up here would be. He's checking those chests. That costs a little bit more time.
As we find a green bottle in the switch room before Moldorm 2. We're definitely going to see a verification chest check here from Illus. As we see Prior enter into Ganon at 1 hour, 44 minutes, 27 seconds.
And taking no chances, preemptively drinking his potion.
Nice spin.
Gets a double spin that sets up a 1 cycle for phase 1, and this is a pretty easy pattern for 1 cycle for phase 2.
And he should have already pushed Ganon to phase 3.
Using your health as a resource, and just eating those fire bats because you know you can.
With half magic as well. The Master Sword fight for Illus isn't going to be terrible.
Dude, Illus got the dream! 2 cycle Aga 2.
Nice. That's going to save a little bit of time.
Illus is working so hard, but I don't think he can do it, you guys.
Yeah, you need 12 spins per phase. You do have the cape and half magic with that blue goo, so it is significantly easier than trying to get him while he's teleporting. You can just kind of sit there and spin away, but...
Like, Illus is undoubtedly going to have a much faster phase 4, but starting the fight late and slower phase 1 and 2. Prior is not going for triples, though, just using the lamp here.
That may be a product of not having the full complement of safeties that Illus has. Illus still has that blue goo, still has a green goo in pocket, thanks to picking up that last chest before Moldorm 2.
It looked like Prior was going to go for a cape spin. Ill-advised.
As we see Illus hitting that phase 3. This comes down to if Prior misses a couple of spins, that gives time for Illus to catch up and use those silvers.
He has to fall.
Oh, and there goes Ganon. As we see Prior get the victory fanfare, hold their temper sword up into the air. And with an official time of 1 hour, 47 minutes, and 4 seconds, prier57 picks up the 3 points for Team Magic Lamp Oil in what is a very competitive and close race.
Yeah, this ended up being really close. And there's silver arrow number 4 for Illus.
Yeah, when the real difference in a race is someone picking up a tempered and someone having to do Master Sword. As we see Illus finish with a very respectable and good time of 1 hour, 47 minutes, and 49 seconds.
So Illus gained time over Prior. It was a 65-second difference entering TR, and now only 40-second difference at the end. Just wasn't quite enough.
As we have both of our runners joining us, gentlemen, congratulations on a very strong run. This was super close, with the tempered sword really honestly being the difference in the race. How you guys feeling?
Bad, man.
I don't
I
like
feel I feel terrible. I had to play like the most boring seed I've played in months and still lose. And I don't know. Like the past weeks haven't been great for me in regards to rando. So I feel bad. Not gonna lie.
I think the sword was definitely part of it, but I think the biggest difference maker between the two of you was Swamp. Illus, you go moded, or you full cleared Swamp, and Prior, because he made the dive on Pendant Helmasaur first, ended up being able to go mode Swamp in the end. He misses silvers, but he saves a lot of time over full
why would you ever do Pendant Helmasaur King over Swamp Palace?
Because he was playing Illus.
Oh god.
Yeah,
That's
right.
why I would do it.
Oh, feels bad.
Tell us about it, Prior. Why did you choose Helmasaur over Swamp?
I was committed to try something. I didn't play since a while, so obviously I had to try something, to gamble something, and I did almost all pod before finding Hammer, and I thought it was a good idea to try to get something in there, and we had green pennant, so I tried, and luckily I found those myths. But yeah, I totally join Illus in his thoughts. It was it was very boring seed. Trolling locations everywhere, hammer, ice rod, fire rod, myths, troll locations everywhere, and it was very hard to play and to get a decent time.
Yeah, even the boots, like even knowing the boots are a Dark World location.
Yeah, I didn't even know Purple Chest was a Dark World location. I didn't know that.
It was a big surprise. We thought it had to be Pyramid Fairy.
I felt like it had to be the Smiths, but I still did Skullwoods beforehand, because if you get boots at 110 or at 120, it doesn't really matter anymore. So I just put it off, knowing that it's probably boots over there.
So we don't have like a ton of time for the interviews, because we do have another race coming up soon. But I did want to ask you, Prior, specifically, how often did you forget it was Ambrosia? Especially in Ice Palace, you did the whole right side, even though you found 2 items already, and the third one had to be on Cold Stare.
Yeah, I had a choice. I could go to Swamp or Ice Palace, and I chose Ice. Same way I chose Pod. I had to try something, and I wanted to try to be able to go mode Swamp. Luckily, I found I found the shovel in ice, and when I found it, I had to check that location. I had to check it, and I'm very lucky to find that ice rod before trying to go mode everything else and go directly to Turtle Rock.
Yeah, going to Ice Palace before Swamp definitely ended up being the correct play. But in Ice Palace, you found 2 items. You found the item in the compass chest, and then you found the sword. And because it's Ambrosia, the boss has to have that 3rd item, but instead you went to the right side. Did you just forget finding Ambrosia?
I'm not very familiar with that new mode.
Right.
I played like 2 seeds before, I think, and
it's hard to think about if you don't play it a lot.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that there's a guaranteed item on the bosses, and I totally forgot it.
Well, it didn't end up costing you the race, at least, so no harm, no foul.
Yeah, again, very lucky, and GG to Illus. He's a very great player, and
GG.
I'm very surprised. I managed to keep it up, and I'm very happy for my team, and I hope we can qualify.
Yeah, man, I thought you were more rusty than this.
I'm super rusty.
Well, we do appreciate your guys' time after this racing seed. Again, GG to both of you in a very close race. I'm very excited to see where you guys and your teams end up coming out here in the race league.
Yeah,
Always more fun to come when it's close like this.
I'm not worried. Our team's gonna make it. I'm not gonna drop the ball on this one, even though I lost the first 2 weeks now.
So I would like to give a big thank you to Koi, my co-commentator for this race, our tracker today, Dark Diplomat, our two racers, Illus and prier57. Remember, there's going to be tons of races going on throughout the SpeedGaming Racing Channel Network and the Link to the Past Randomizer League channels as well. We've got another race coming up right for you right after we close down this seed in Tepidino versus Engels with Nielsen Alex and Tracy M on comms. Please enjoy the rest of this season of the Link to the Past Randomizer League team races. For myself and Koi, you guys have yourselves a wonderful day.
Bye, everybody.